Father Gorriot, Honor de Balzac. The Project Gutenberg e-book of Father Gorriot, by Honor de Balzac. This e-book is for the use of anyone anywhere at no cost and with almost no restrictions whatsoever. You may copy it, give it away or reuse it under the terms of the Project Gutenberg license included with this e-book or online at www.gutenberg.net. Title: Father Gorriot. Author: Honor de Balzac. Release date: October 6, 2004. Ebook 1237. Language: English. Character set encoding: ASCII. Start of this Project Gutenberg ebook. Father Gorriot. Produced by Dagny. Father Gorriot. By Honor de Balzac. Translated by Alan Marriage. Children, children, kiss each other, cried the father. You are angels, both of you. No, let me alone, cried the countess, shaking off the hand that her father had laid on her arm. She is more merciless than my husband. Anyone might think she was a model of all the virtues herself. I would rather have people think that I owed money to M.D. Mars than own that M.D. Trails had cost me more than 200,000 francs, retorted me, de Nucingen. Delphine, cried the countess, stepping towards her sister. I shall tell you the truth about yourself if you begin to slander me, said the Baroness coldly. Delphine, you are a... Father Gorriot sprang between them, grasped the countess' hand, and laid his own over her mouth. Good heavens, father, what have you been handling this morning? Said Anastasie. Oh, well, yes, I ought not to have touched you, said the poor father, wiping his hands on his trousers, but I have been packing up my things. I did not know that you were coming to see me. He was glad that he had drawn down her wrath upon himself. Oh, he sighed, as he sat down. You children have broken my heart between you. This is killing me. My head feels as if it were on fire. Be good to each other and love each other. This will be the death of me. Delphine, Nassie, come, be sensible. You are both in the wrong. Come, Diddle, he added, looking through his tears at the Baroness. She must have 12,000 francs, you see. Let us see if we can find them for her. Oh, my girls, do not look at each other like that. And he sank on his knees beside Delphine. Ask her to forgive you, just to please me, he said in her ear. She is more miserable than you are. Come now, Diddle. Poor Nassie, said Delphine, alarmed at the wild, extravagant grief in her father's face. I was in the wrong, kiss me. Oh, that is like balm to my heart, cried Father Gorriot. But how are we to find 12,000 francs? I might offer myself as a substitute in the army. Oh, father dear, they both cried, flinging their arms about him. No, no, God reward you for the thought. We are not worth it, are we, Nassie? Asked Delphine. And besides, father dear, it would only be a drop in the bucket, observed the countess. But is flesh and blood worth nothing? Cried the old man in his despair. I would give body and soul to save you, Nassie. I would do a murder for the man who would rescue you. I would do as Vautrin did, go to the hulks, go. He stopped as if struck by a thunderbolt, and put both hands to his head. Nothing left, he cried, tearing his hair. If I only knew of a way to steal money, but it is so hard to do it, and then you can't set to work by yourself, and it takes time to rob a bank. Yes, it is time I was dead. There is nothing left me to do but to die. I am no good in the world. I am no longer a father. No. She has come to me in her extremity, and, wretch that I am, I have nothing to give her. Oh, you put your money into a life annuity, old scoundrel. And had you not daughters? You did not love them. Die in a ditch, like the dog that you are. Yes, I am worse than a dog. A beast would not have done as I have done. Oh, my head, it throbs, as if it would burst. Papa, cried both the young women at once, do, pray, be reasonable. And they clung to him to prevent him from dashing his head against the wall. There was a sound of sobbing. Eugene, greatly alarmed, took the bill that bore Vautrin's signature, saw that the stamp would suffice for a larger sum, altered the figures, made it into a regular bill for 12,000 francs, payable to Gorriot's order, and went to his neighbor's room. Here is the money, madam, he said, handing the piece of paper to her. I was asleep. Your conversation awoke me, and by this means I learned all that I owed to M. Gorriot. This bill can be discounted, and I shall meet it punctually at the due date. The countess stood motionless and speechless, but she held the bill in her fingers. Delphine, she said, with a white face, and her whole frame quivering with indignation, anger, and rage, I forgave you everything. God is my witness that I forgave you, but I cannot forgive this. So this gentleman was there all the time, and you knew it. Your petty spite has led you to wreak your vengeance on me by betraying my secrets, my life, my children's lives, my shame, my honor. There, you are nothing to me any longer. I hate you. I will do all that I can to injure you. I will. Anger paralyzed her. The words died in her dry, parched throat. Why, he is my son, my child. He is your brother, your preserver, cried Gorriot. Kiss his hand, Nasi. Stay, I will embrace him myself, he said, straining Eugene to his breast in a frenzied clasp. Oh my boy, I will be more than a father to you. If I had God's power, I would fling worlds at your feet. Why don't you kiss him, Nasi? He is not a man, but an angel out of heaven. Never mind her, father. She is mad just now. Mad. Am I? And what are you? Cried me, dearest Todd. Children, children, I shall die if you go on like this, cried the old man, and he staggered and fell on the bed as if a bullet had struck him. They are killing me between them, he said to himself. The Countess fixed her eyes on Eugene, who stood stock still. All his faculties were numbed by this violent scene. Sir, she said, doubt and inquiry in her face, tone, and bearing. She took no notice now of her father nor of Delphine, who was hastily unfastening his waistcoat. Madam, said Eugene, answering the question before it was asked, I will meet the bill, and keep silence about it. You have killed our father, Nasi, said Delphine, pointing to Gorriot, who lay unconscious on the bed. The Countess fled. I freely forgive her, said the old man, opening his eyes. Her position is horrible. It would turn an older head than hers. Comfort Nasi, and be nice to her, Delphine. Promise it to your poor father before he dies, he asked, holding Delphine's hand in a convulsive clasp. Oh, what ails you, father? She cried in real alarm. Nothing, nothing, said Gorriot. It will go off. There is something heavy pressing on my forehead, a little headache. Oh, poor Nasi, what a life lies before her. Just as he spoke, the Countess came back again and flung herself on her knees before him. Forgive me, she cried. Come, said her father, you are hurting me still more. Monsieur, the Countess said, turning to Rastignac, misery made me unjust to you. You will be a brother to me, will you not? And she held out her hand. Her eyes were full of tears as she spoke. Nasi, cried Delphine, flinging her arms round her sister. My little Nasi, let us forget and forgive. No, no, cried Nasi. I shall never forget. Dear angels, cried Gorriot, it is as if a dark curtain over my eyes had been raised. Your voices have called me back to life. Kiss each other once more. Well, now, Nasi, that bill will save you, won't it? I hope so. I say, Papa, will you write your name on it? There. How stupid of me to forget that. But I am not feeling at all well, Nasi, so you must not remember it against me. Send and let me know as soon as you are out of your strait. No, I will go to you. No, after all, I will not go. I might meet your husband, and I should kill him on the spot. And as for signing away your property, I shall have a word to say about that. Quick, my child, and keep Maxime in order in future. Eugene was too bewildered to speak. Poor Anastasie, she always had a violent temper, said me, Denusinen, but she has a good heart. She came back for the endorsement, said Eugene in Delphine's ear. Do you think so? I only wish I could think otherwise. Do not trust her, he answered, raising his eyes as if he confided to heaven the thoughts that he did not venture to express. Yes, she is always acting a part to some extent. How do you feel now, dear Father Gorriot? Asked Rastignac. I should like to go to sleep, he replied. Eugene helped him to bed, and Delphine sat by the bedside, holding his hand until he fell asleep. Then she went. This evening at the Italians, she said to Eugene, and you can let me know how he is. Tomorrow you will leave this place, monsieur. Let us go into your room. Oh, how frightful, she cried on the threshold. Why, you are even worse lodged than our father. Eugene, you have behaved well. I would love you more if that were possible. But, dear boy, if you are to succeed in life, you must not begin by flinging 12,000 francs out of the windows like that. The Comte de Trailles is a confirmed gambler. My sister shuts her eyes to it. He would have made the 12,000 francs in the same way that he wins and loses heaps of gold. A groan from the next room brought them back to Gorriot's bedside. To all appearances he was asleep, but the two lovers caught the words, they are not happy. Whether he was awake or sleeping, the tone in which they were spoken went to his daughter's heart. She stole up to the pallet bed on which her father lay, and kissed his forehead. He opened his eyes. Oh, Delphine, he said. How are you now? She asked. Quite comfortable. Do not worry about me. I shall get up presently. Don't stay with me, children. Go and be happy. Eugene went back with Delphine as far as her door. But he was not easy about Gorriot, and would not stay to dinner, as she proposed. He wanted to be back at the Maisonvocker. Father Gorriot had left his room, and was just sitting down to dinner as he came in. Bianchon had placed himself where he could watch the old man carefully, and when the old vermicelli maker took up his square of bread and smelled it to find out the quality of the flour, the medical student, studying him closely, saw that the action was purely mechanical, and shook his head. "Just come and sit over here, hospitaller of Cochin," said Eugene. Bianchon went the more willingly because his change of place brought him next to the old lodger. "What is wrong with him?" asked Rastignac. "It is all up with him, or I am much mistaken. Something very extraordinary must have taken place. He looks to me as if he were in imminent danger of stress apoplexy. The lower part of his face is composed enough, but the upper part is drawn and distorted. Then there is that peculiar look about the eyes that indicates an effusion of serum in the brain. They look as though they were covered with a film of fine dust. Do you notice? I shall know more about it by tomorrow morning. Is there any cure for it?" "None. It might be possible to stave death off for a time if a way could be found of setting up a reaction in the lower extremities. But if the symptoms do not abate by tomorrow evening, it will be all over with him, poor old fellow. Do you know what has happened to bring this on? There must have been some violent shock, and his mind has given way." "Yes, there was," said Rastignac, remembering how the two daughters had struck blow on blow at their father's heart. "But Delphine at any rate loves her father," he said to himself. That evening at the opera Rastignac chose his words carefully, lest he should give me, Denusin, needless alarm. "Do not be anxious about him," she said, however, as soon as Eugene began. "Our father has really a strong constitution, but this morning we gave him a shock. Our whole fortunes were in peril, so the thing was serious, you see. I could not live if your affection did not make me insensible to troubles that I should once have thought too hard to bear. At this moment I have but one fear left, but one misery to dread, to lose the love that has made me feel glad to live. Everything else is as nothing to me compared with our love. I care for nothing else, for you are all the world to me. If I feel glad to be rich, it is for your sake. To my shame be it said, I think of my lover before my father. Do you ask why? I cannot tell you, but all my life is in you. My father gave me a heart, but you have taught it to beat. The whole world may condemn me. What does it matter if I stand acquitted in your eyes, for you have no right to think ill of me for the faults which a tyrannous love has forced me to commit for you. Do you think me an unnatural daughter? Oh, no, no one could help loving such a dear kind father as ours. But how could I hide the inevitable consequences of our miserable marriages from him? Why did he allow us to marry when we did? Was it not his duty to think for us and foresee for us? Today I know he suffers as much as we do, but how can it be helped? And as for comforting him, we could not comfort him in the least. Our resignation would give him more pain and hurt him far more than complaints and upbraidings. There are times in life when everything turns to bitterness." Eugene was silent. The artless and sincere outpouring made an impression on him. Parisian women are often false, intoxicated with vanity, selfish and self-absorbed, frivolous and shallow. Yet of all women, when they love, they sacrifice their personal feelings to their passion. They rise but so much the higher for all the pettiness overcome in their nature, and become sublime. Then Eugene was struck by the profound discernment and insight displayed by this woman in judging of natural affection, when a privileged affection had separated and set her at a distance apart. Denusin was piqued by the silence. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "I am thinking about what you said just now. Hitherto I have always felt sure that I cared far more for you than you did for me." She smiled, and would not give way to the happiness she felt, lest their talk should exceed the conventional limits of propriety. She had never heard the vibrating tones of a sincere and youthful love. A few more words, and she feared for her self-control. "Eugene," she said, changing the conversation, "I wonder whether you know what has been happening. All Paris will go to me, de Bosens, tomorrow. The Roquefides and the Marquis d'Ajuda have agreed to keep the matter a profound secret, but tomorrow the king will sign the marriage contract, and your poor cousin the Vicomtesse knows nothing of it as yet. She cannot put off her ball, and the Marquis will not be there. People are wondering what will happen. The world laughs at baseness and connives at it. But this will kill me, de Bosent." "Oh, no," said Delphine, smiling, "you do not know that kind of woman. Why, all Paris will be there, and so shall I. I ought to go there for your sake. Perhaps, after all, it is one of those absurd reports that people set in circulation here. We shall know the truth tomorrow. Eugene did not return to the Maison Vauquer. He could not forego the pleasure of occupying his new rooms in the Rue d'Artois. Yesterday evening he had been obliged to leave Delphine soon after midnight, but that night it was Delphine who stayed with him until 2 o'clock in the morning. He rose late and waited for me, de Nucingen, who came about noon to breakfast with him. Youth snatches eagerly at these rosy moments of happiness, and Eugene had almost forgotten Gorriot's existence. The pretty things that surrounded him were growing familiar. This domestication in itself was one long festival for him and me. de Nucingen was there to glorify it all by her presence. It was 4 o'clock before they thought of Gorriot, and of how he had looked forward to the new life in that house. Eugene said that the old man ought to be moved at once, lest he should grow too ill to move. He left Delphine and hurried back to the lodging house. Neither Father Gorriot nor young Bianchon was in the dining room with the others. "Aha," said the painter as Eugene came in, "Father Gorriot has broken down at last. Bianchon is upstairs with him. One of his daughters, the Comtesse de Ristorama, came to see the old gentleman, and he would get up and go out, and made himself worse. Society is about to lose one of its brightest ornaments." Rastignac sprang to the staircase. "Hey, Monsieur Eugene! Monsieur Eugene, the mistress is calling you," shouted Sylvie. "It is this, sir," said the widow. "You and Gorriot should by rights have moved out on the 15th of February. That was 3 days ago. Today is the 18th. I ought really to be paid a month in advance. But if you will engage to pay for both, I shall be quite satisfied. Why can't you trust him?" "Trust him, indeed. If the old gentleman went off his head and died, those daughters of his would not pay me a farthing, and his things won't fetch 10 francs. This morning he went out with all the spoons and forks he has left. I don't know why. He had got himself up to look quite young, and Lord, forgive me, but I thought he had rouge on his cheeks. He looked quite young again." "I will be responsible," said Eugene, shuddering with horror, for he foresaw the end. He climbed the stairs and reached Father Gorriot's room. The old man was tossing on his bed. Bianchon was with him. "Good evening, Father," said Eugene. The old man turned his glassy eyes on him, smiled gently, and said, "How is she?" "She is quite well. But how are you?" "There is nothing much the matter." "Don't tire him," said Bianchon, drawing Eugene into a corner of the room. "Well?" asked Rastignac. "Nothing but a miracle can save him now. Sr's congestion has set in. I have put on mustard plasters, and luckily he can feel them. They are acting." "Is it possible to move him?" "Quite out of the question. He must stay where he is, and be kept as quiet as possible." "Dear Bianchon," said Eugene, "we will nurse him between us. I have had the head physician round from my hospital to see him." "And what did he say?" "He will give no opinion till tomorrow evening. He promised to look in again at the end of the day. Unluckily, the preposterous creature must needs go and do something foolish this morning. He will not say what it was. He is as obstinate as a mule. As soon as I begin to talk to him he pretends not to hear, and lies as if he were asleep instead of answering, or if he opens his eyes he begins to groan. Sometime this morning he went out on foot in the streets, nobody knows where he went, and he took everything that he had of any value with him. He has been driving some confounded bargain, and it has been too much for his strength. One of his daughters has been here." "Was it the Countess?" asked Eugene. "A tall, dark-haired woman, with large bright eyes, slender figure, and little feet." "Yes." "Leave him to me for a bit," said Rastignac. "I will make him confess. He will tell me all about it. And meanwhile I will get my dinner. But try not to excite him. There is still some hope left." "All right. How they will enjoy themselves tomorrow," said Father Gorriot when they were alone. "They are going to a grand ball. What were you doing this morning, Papa, to make yourself so poorly this evening that you have to stop in bed?" "Nothing." "Did not Anastasie come to see you?" demanded Rastignac. "Yes," said Father Gorriot. "Well, then, don't keep anything from me. What more did she want of you?" "Oh, she was very miserable," he answered, gathering up all his strength to speak. "It was this way, my boy. Since that affair of the diamonds, Nassie has not had a penny of her own. For this ball she had ordered a golden gown like a setting for a jewel. Her mantua maker, a woman without a conscience, would not give her credit, so Nassie's waiting woman advanced 1,000 francs on account. Poor Nassie, reduced to such shifts. It cut me to the heart to think of it. But when Nassie's maid saw how things were between her master and mistress, she was afraid of losing her money, and came to an understanding with the dressmaker, and the woman refuses to send the ball dress until the money is paid. The gown is ready, and the ball is tomorrow night." Nassie was in despair. She wanted to borrow my forks and spoons to pawn them. Her husband is determined that she shall go and wear the diamonds, so as to contradict the stories that are told all over Paris. How can she go to that heartless scoundrel and say I owe 1,000 francs to my dressmaker? Pay her for me. She cannot. I saw that myself. Delphine will be there too in a superb toilette, and Anastasie ought not to be outshone by her younger sister. And then she was drowned in tears, poor girl. I felt so humbled yesterday when I had not the 12,000 francs that I would have given the rest of my miserable life to wipe out that wrong. You see, I could have borne anything once, but latterly this want of money has broken my heart. Oh, I did not do it by halves. I titivated myself up a bit and went out and sold my spoons and forks and buckles for 600 francs. Then I went to old Daddy Gobsk and sold a year's interest on my annuity for 400 francs down. Pshaw. I can live on dry bread, as I did when I was a young man. If I have done it before, I can do it again. My Nassie shall have one happy evening at any rate. She shall be smart. The banknote for 1,000 francs is under my pillow. It warms me to have it lying there under my head, for it is going to make my poor Nassie happy. She can turn that bad girl Victoire out of the house. A servant that cannot trust her mistress, did anyone ever hear the like? I shall be quite well tomorrow. Nassie is coming at 10 o'clock. They must not think that I am ill, or they will not go to the ball. They will stop and take care of me. Tomorrow Nassie will come and hold me in her arms as if I were one of her children. Her kisses will make me well again. After all, I might have spent the 1,000 francs on physic. I would far rather give them to my little Nassie, who can charm all the pain away. At any rate, I am some comfort to her in her misery, and that makes up for my unkindness in buying an annuity. She is in the depths, and I cannot draw her out of them now. Oh, I will go into business again. I will buy wheat in Odessa. Out there, wheat fetches a quarter of the price it sells for here. There is a law against the importation of grain, but the good folk who made the law forgot to prohibit the introduction of wheat products and foodstuffs made from corn. Hey, that struck me this morning. There is a fine trade to be done in starch. Eugene, watching the old man's face, thought that his friend was light-headed. Come, he said, do not talk any more, you must rest. Just then Bianchon came up, and Eugene went down to dinner. The two students sat up with him that night, relieving each other in turn. Bianchon brought up his medical books and studied. Eugene wrote letters home to his mother and sisters. Next morning Bianchon thought the symptoms more hopeful, but the patient's condition demanded continual attention, which the two students alone were willing to give, a task impossible to describe in the squeamish phraseology of the epoch. Leeches must be applied to the wasted body, the poultices and hot foot baths and other details of the treatment required the physical strength and devotion of the two young men. Dearest did not come, but she sent a messenger for the money. I expected she would come herself. But it would have been a pity for her to come. She would have been anxious about me, said the father, and to all appearances he was well content. At 7 o'clock that evening Therese came with a letter from Delphine. What are you doing, dear friend? I have been loved for a very little while, and I am neglected already. In the confidences of heart and heart, I have learned to know your soul. You are too noble not to be faithful forever, for you know that love with all its infinite subtle changes of feeling is never the same. Once you said, as we were listening to the prayer in Mozanegito, for some it is the monotony of a single note. For others, it is the infinite of sound. Remember that I am expecting you this evening to take me to de Beaucent's ball. Everyone knows now that the king signed D. Judas' marriage contract this morning, and the poor Vicomtesse knew nothing of it until 2 o'clock this afternoon. All Paris will flock to her house, of course, just as a crowd fills the Place de Grève to see an execution. It is horrible, is it not, to go out of curiosity to see if she will hide her anguish, and whether she will die courageously. I certainly should not go, my friend, if I had been at her house before. But, of course, she will not receive society any more after this, and all my efforts would be in vain. My position is a very unusual one, and besides, I am going there partly on your account. I am waiting for you. If you are not beside me in less than 2 hours, I do not know whether I could forgive such treason. Rastignac took up a pen and wrote, I am waiting till the doctor comes to know if there is any hope of your father's life. He is lying dangerously ill. I will come and bring you the news, but I am afraid it may be a sentence of death. When I come you can decide whether you can go to the ball yours 1,000 times. At 8:30 the doctor arrived. He did not take a very hopeful view of the case, but thought that there was no immediate danger. Improvements and relapses might be expected, and the good man's life and reason hung in the balance. It would be better for him to die at once, the doctor said as he took leave. Eugene left Gorriot to Bianchen's care, and went to carry the sad news to meet gu001237. Family feeling lingered in her, and this must put an end for the present to her plans of amusement. Tell her to enjoy her evening as if nothing had happened, cried Gorriot. He had been lying in a sort of stupor, but he suddenly sat upright as Eugene went out. Eugene, half heartbroken, entered Delphine's. Her hair had been dressed. She wore her dancing slippers. She had only to put on her ball dress. But when the artist is giving the finishing stroke to his creation, the last touches require more time than the whole groundwork of the picture. "Why, you are not dressed!" she cried. "Madam, your father." "My father again!" she exclaimed, breaking in upon him. "You need not teach me what is due to my father. I have known my father this long while." "Not a word, Eugene. I will hear what you have to say when you are dressed. My carriage is waiting. Take it, go round to your rooms and dress. Therese has put out everything in readiness for you. Come back as soon as you can. We will talk about my father on the way to meet de Beaucents. We must go early. If we have to wait our turn in a row of carriages, we shall be lucky if we get there by 11 o'clock. Madam, quick, not a word," she cried, darting into her dressing room for a necklace. "Do go, Monsieur Eugene, or you will vex Madame," said Therese, hurrying him away. And Eugene was too horror-stricken by this elegant parricide to resist. He went to his rooms and dressed, sad, thoughtful, and dispirited. The world of Paris was like an ocean of mud for him just then, and it seemed that whoever set foot in that black mire must needs sink into it up to the chin. "Their crimes are paltry," said Eugene to himself. Vautrin was greater. He had seen society in its three great phases: obedience, struggle, and revolt. The family, the world, and Vautrin. And he hesitated in his choice. Obedience was dull, revolt impossible, struggle hazardous. His thoughts wandered back to the home circle. He thought of the quiet, uneventful life, the pure happiness of the days spent among those who loved him there. Those loving and beloved beings passed their lives in obedience to the natural laws of the hearth, and in that obedience found a deep and constant serenity, unvexed by torments such as these. Yet, for all his good impulses, he could not bring himself to make profession of the religion of pure souls to Delphine, nor to prescribe the duties of piety to her in the name of love. His education had begun to bear its fruits. He loved selfishly already. Besides, his tact had discovered to him the real nature of Delphine. He divined instinctively that she was capable of stepping over her father's corpse to go to the ball. And within himself he felt that he had neither the strength of mind to play the part of mentor, nor the strength of character to vex her, nor the courage to leave her to go alone. "She would never forgive me for putting her in the wrong over it," he said to himself. Then he turned the doctor's dictum over in his mind. He tried to believe that Gorriot was not so dangerously ill as he had imagined, and ended by collecting together a sufficient quantity of traitorous excuses for Delphine's conduct. She did not know how ill her father was. The kind old man himself would have made her go to the ball if she had gone to see him. So often it happens that this one or that stands condemned by the social laws that govern family relations. And yet there are peculiar circumstances in the case, differences of temperament, divergent interests, innumerable complications of family life that excuse the apparent offense. Eugene did not wish to see too clearly. He was ready to sacrifice his conscience to his mistress. Within the last few days his whole life had undergone a change. Woman had entered into his world and thrown it into chaos. Family claims dwindled away before her. She had appropriated all his being to her uses. Rastignac and Delphine found each other at a crisis in their lives when their union gave them the most poignant bliss. Their passion, so long proved, had only gained in strength by the gratified desire that often extinguishes passion. This woman was his, and Eugene recognized that not until then had he loved her. Perhaps love is only gratitude for pleasure. This woman, vile or sublime, he adored for the pleasure she had brought as her dower. And Delphine loved Rastignac as Tantalus would have loved some angel who had satisfied his hunger and quenched the burning thirst in his parched throat. "Well," said gu001237 when he came back in evening dress, "how is my father?" "Very dangerously ill," he answered. "If you will grant me a proof of your affections, we will just go in to see him on the way." "Very well," she said. "Yes, but afterwards. Dear Eugene, do be nice, and don't preach to me. Come." They set out. Eugene said nothing for a while. "What is it now?" she asked. "I can hear the death rattle in your father's throat," he said almost angrily. and with the hot indignation of youth, he told the story of Ristod's vanity and cruelty, of her father's final act of self-sacrifice that had brought about this struggle between life and death, of the price that had been paid for Anastasi's golden embroideries. Delphine cried. I shall look frightful, she thought. She dried her tears. I will nurse my father. I will not leave his bedside, she said aloud. Oh, now you are as I would have you, exclaimed Rastignac. The lamps of 500 carriages lit up the darkness about the Hotel de Beaucent. A gendarme in all the glory of his uniform stood on either side of the brightly lighted gateway. The great world was flocking thither that night in its eager curiosity to see the great lady at the moment of her fall, and the rooms on the ground floor were already full to overflowing, when Nucingen and Rastignac appeared. Never since Louis Ziv tore her lover away from La Grande Mademoiselle, and the whole court hastened to visit that unfortunate princess, had a disastrous love affair made such a sensation in Paris. But the youngest daughter of the almost royal house of Burgundy had risen proudly above her pain, and moved till the last moment like a queen in this world. Its vanities had always been valueless for her, save in so far as they contributed to the triumph of her passion. The salons were filled with the most beautiful women in Paris, resplendent in their toilettes, and radiant with smiles. Ministers and ambassadors, the most distinguished men at court, men bedizened with decorations, stars, and ribbons, men who bore the most illustrious names in France, had gathered about the Vicomtesse. The music of the orchestra vibrated in wave after wave of sound from the golden ceiling of the palace, now made desolate for its queen. Madame de Beaucent stood at the door of the first salon to receive the guests who were styled her friends. She was dressed in white, and wore no ornament in the plaits of hair braided about her head. Her face was calm. There was no sign there of pride, nor of pain, nor of joy that she did not feel. No one could read her soul. She stood there like some Niobe carved in marble. For a few intimate friends there was a tinge of satire in her smile. But no scrutiny saw any change in her, nor had she looked otherwise in the days of the glory of her happiness. The most callous of her guests admired her as young Rome applauded some gladiator who could die smiling. It seemed as if society had adorned itself for a last audience of one of its sovereigns. I was afraid that you would not come, she said to Rastignac. Madam, he said, in an unsteady voice, taking her speech as a reproach, I shall be the last to go, that is why I am here. Good, she said, and she took his hand. You are perhaps the only one I can trust here among all these. Oh, my friend, when you love a woman whom you are sure that you can love always. Never forsake a woman. She took Rastignac's arm, and went towards a sofa in the card room. I want you to go to the Marquis, she said. Jacques, my footman, will go with you. He has a letter that you will take. I am asking the Marquis to give my letters back to me. He will give them all up, I like to think that. When you have my letters, go up to my room with them. Someone shall bring me word. She rose to go to meet the Duchesse de Langeais, her most intimate friend, who had come like the rest of the world. Rastignac went. He asked for the Marquis d'Ajuda at the Hotel Roquefide, feeling certain that the latter would be spending his evening there, and so it proved. The Marquis went to his own house with Rastignac, and gave a casket to the student, saying as he did so, they are all there. He seemed as if he was about to say something to Eugene, to ask about the ball, or the Vicomtesse. Perhaps he was on the brink of the confession that, even then, he was in despair, and knew that his marriage had been a fatal mistake. But a proud gleam shone in his eyes, and with deplorable courage he kept his noblest feelings a secret. Do not even mention my name to her, my dear Eugene. He grasped Rastignac's hand sadly and affectionately, and turned away from him. Eugene went back to the Hotel Beaucent. The servant took him to the Vicomtesse's room. There were signs there of preparations for a journey. He sat down by the fire, fixed his eyes on the cedarwood casket, and fell into deep mournful musings. De Beaucent loomed large in these imaginings, like a goddess in the Iliad. Oh, my friend, said the Vicomtesse. She crossed the room and laid her hand on Rastignac's shoulder. He saw the tears in his cousin's uplifted eyes, saw that one hand was raised to take the casket, and that the fingers of the other trembled. Suddenly she took the casket, put it in the fire, and watched it burn. They are dancing, she said. They all came very early. But death will be long in coming. Hush, my friend, and she laid a finger on Rastignac's lips, seeing that he was about to speak. I shall never see Paris again. I am taking my leave of the world. At 5 o'clock this morning I shall set out on my journey. I mean to bury myself in the remotest part of Normandy. I have had very little time to make my arrangements. Since 3 o'clock this afternoon I have been busy signing documents, setting my affairs in order. There was no one whom I could send to. She broke off. He was sure to be. Again she broke off. The weight of her sorrow was more than she could bear. In such moments as these everything is agony, and some words are impossible to utter. And so I counted upon you to do me this last piece of service this evening, she said. I should like to give you some pledge of friendship. I shall often think of you. You have seemed to me to be kind and noble, fresh-hearted and true, in this world where such qualities are seldom found. I should like you to think sometimes of me. Stay, she said, glancing about her. There is this box that has held my gloves. Every time I opened it before going to a ball or to the theater, I used to feel that I must be beautiful, because I was so happy. And I never touched it except to lay some gracious memory in it. There is so much of my old self in it, of a Madame de Beausant who now lives no longer. Will you take it? I will leave directions that it is to be sent to you in the Rue d'Artois. de Nucingen looked very charming this evening. Eugene, you must love her. Perhaps we may never see each other again, my friend. But be sure of this, that I shall pray for you who have been kind to me. Now let us go downstairs. People shall not think that I am weeping. I have all time and eternity before me, and where I am going I shall be alone, and no one will ask me the reason of my tears. One last look round first. She stood for a moment. Then she covered her eyes with her hands for an instant, dashed away the tears, bathed her face with cold water, and took the student's arm. Let us go, she said. This suffering, endured with such noble fortitude, shook Eugene with a more violent emotion than he had felt before. They went back to the ballroom, and de Beausant went through the rooms on Eugene's arm, the last delicately gracious act of a gracious woman. In another moment he saw the sisters, de Ristad and de Nucingen. The Countess shone in all the glory of her magnificent diamonds. Every stone must have scorched like fire. She was never to wear them again. Strong as love and pride might be in her, she found it difficult to meet her husband's eyes. The sight of her was scarcely calculated to lighten Rastignac's sad thoughts. Through the blaze of those diamonds, he seemed to see the wretched pallet bed on which Father Gorriot was lying. The Vicomtesse misread his melancholy. She withdrew her hand from his arm. Come, she said, I must not deprive you of a pleasure. Eugene was soon claimed by Delphine. She was delighted by the impression that she had made, and eager to lay at her lover's feet the homage she had received in this new world in which she hoped to live and move henceforth. What do you think of Nassy? She asked him. She has discounted everything, even her own father's death, said Rastignac. Towards 4 o'clock in the morning the rooms began to empty. A little later the music ceased, and the Duchess de Langeais and Rastignac were left in the great ballroom. The Vicomtesse, who thought to find the student there alone, came back there at last. She had taken leave of de Beausant, who had gone off to bed, saying again as he went, It is a great pity, my dear, to shut yourself up at your age. Pray stay among us. de Beausant saw the Duchess, and, in spite of herself, an exclamation broke from her. I saw how it was, Clara, said de Langeais. You are going from among us, and you will never come back. But you must not go until you have heard me, until we have understood each other. She took her friend's arm, and they went together into the next room. There the Duchess looked at her with tears in her eyes. She held her friend in close embrace and kissed her cheek. I could not let you go without a word, dearest. The remorse would have been too hard to bear. You can count upon me as surely as upon yourself. You have shown yourself great this evening. I feel that I am worthy of our friendship, and I mean to prove myself worthy of it. I have not always been kind. I was in the wrong. Forgive me, dearest. I wish I couldn't say anything that may have hurt you. I take back those words. One common sorrow has brought us together again, for I do not know which of us is the more miserable. de Montrevaux was not here tonight. Do you understand what that means? None of those who saw you tonight, Clara, will ever forget you. I mean to make one last effort. If I fail, I shall go into a convent. Clara, where are you going? Into Normandy, to Courcelles. I shall love and pray there until the day when God shall take me from this world. de Rastignac called the Vicomtesse, in a tremulous voice, remembering that the young man was waiting there. The student knelt to kiss his cousin's hand. Goodbye, Antoinette, said de Beausant. May you be happy. She turned to the student. You are young, she said. You have some beliefs still left. I have been privileged, like some dying people, to find sincere and reverent feeling in those about me as I take my leave of this world. It was nearly 5 o'clock that morning when Rastignac came away. He had put de Beausant into her travelling carriage, and received her last farewells, spoken amid fast falling tears. For no greatness is so great that it can rise above the laws of human affection, or live beyond the jurisdiction of pain, as certain demagogues would have the people believe. Eugene returned on foot to the Maisenwacher through the cold and darkness. His education was nearly complete. "There is no hope for poor Father Gorriot," said Bianchon, as Rastignac came into the room. Eugene looked for a while at the sleeping man, then he turned to his friend. "Dear fellow, you are content with the modest career you have marked out for yourself. Keep to it. I am in hell, and I must stay there. Believe everything that you hear said of the world, nothing is too impossibly bad. No juvenile could paint the horrors hidden away under the covering of gems and gold." At 2 o'clock in the afternoon Bianchon came to wake Rastignac, and begged him to take charge of Gorriot, who had grown worse as the day wore on. The medical student was obliged to go out. "Poor old man, he has not 2 days to live, maybe not many hours," he said. "But we must do our utmost, all the same, to fight the disease. It will be a very troublesome case, and we shall want money. We can nurse him between us, of course, but, for my own part, I have not a penny." I have turned out his pockets, and rummaged through his drawers. Result nix. I asked him about it while his mind was clear, and he told me he had not a farthing of his own. "What have you?" "I have 20 francs left," said Rastignac. "But I will take them to the roulette table, I shall be sure to win. And if you lose, then I shall go to his sons-in-law and his daughters and ask them for money." "And suppose they refuse?" Bianchon retorted. "The most pressing thing just now is not really money. We must put mustard poultices, as hot as they can be made, on his feet and legs. If he calls out, there is still some hope for him. You know how to set about doing it, and besides, Christophe will help you. I am going round to the dispensary to persuade them to let us have the things we want on credit. It is a pity that we could not move him to the hospital. Poor fellow, he would be better there. Well, come along, I leave you in charge. You must stay with him till I come back." The 2 young men went back to the room where the old man was lying. Eugene was startled at the change in Gorriot's face, so livid, distorted, and feeble. "How are you, Papa?" he said, bending over the pallet bed. Gorriot turned his dull eyes upon Eugene, looked at him attentively, and did not recognize him. It was more than the student could bear. The tears came into his eyes. "Bianchon, ought we to have the curtains put up in the windows?" "No, the temperature and the light do not affect him now. It would be a good thing for him if he felt heat or cold. But we must have a fire in any case to make tisons and heat the other things. I will send round a few sticks. They will last till we can have in some firewood. I burned all the bark fuel you had left, as well as his, poor man, yesterday and during the night. The place is so damp that the water stood in drops on the walls. I could hardly get the room dry. Christophe came in and swept the floor, but the place is like a stable. I had to burn juniper, the smell was something horrible." "Mon Dieu," said Rastignac. "To think of those daughters of his. One moment, if he asks for something to drink, give him this," said the house student, pointing to a large white jar. "If he begins to groan, and the belly feels hot and hard to the touch, you know what to do. Get Christophe to help you. If he should happen to grow much excited, and begin to talk a good deal and even to ramble in his talk, do not be alarmed. It would not be a bad symptom. But send Christophe to the hospice coach-in. Our doctor, my chum, or I will come and apply moxas. We had a great consultation this morning while you were asleep. A surgeon, a pupil of Gaul's came, and our house surgeon, and the head physician from the Hotel Dieu. Those gentlemen considered that the symptoms were very unusual and interesting. The case must be carefully watched, for it throws a light on several obscure and rather important scientific problems. One of the authorities says that if there is more pressure of serum on one or other portion of the brain, it should affect his mental capacities in such and such directions. So if he should talk, notice very carefully what kind of ideas his mind seems to run on. Whether memory, or penetration, or the reasoning faculties are exercised. Whether sentiments or practical questions fill his thoughts. Whether he makes forecasts or dwells on the past. In fact, you must be prepared to give an accurate report of him. It is quite likely that the extravasation fills the whole brain, in which case he will die in the imbecile state in which he is lying now. You cannot tell anything about these mysterious nervous diseases. Suppose the crash came here, said Bianchon, touching the back of the head. Very strange things have been known to happen. The brain sometimes partially recovers, and death is delayed. Or the congested matter may pass out of the brain altogether through channels which can only be determined by a post-mortem examination. There is an old man at the hospital for incurables, an imbecile patient. In his case the effusion has followed the direction of the spinal cord. He suffers horrid agonies, but he lives. Did they enjoy themselves? It was Father Gorriot who spoke. He had recognized Eugene. Oh, he thinks of nothing but his daughter, said Bianchen. Scores of times last night he said to me, they are dancing now. She has her dress. He called them by their names. He made me cry, the devil take it, calling with that tone in his voice, for Delphine, my little Delphine, and Nassie. Upon my word, said the medical student, it was enough to make anyone burst out crying. Delphine, said the old man, she is there, isn't she? I knew she was there, and his eyes sought the door. I am going down now to tell Sylvie to get the poultices ready, said Bianchen. They ought to go on at once. Rastignac was left alone with the old man. He sat at the foot of the bed, and gazed at the face before him, so horribly changed that it was shocking to see. Noble natures cannot dwell in this world, he said. Medibocent has fled from it, and there he lies dying. What place indeed is there in the shallow, petty, frivolous thing called society for noble thoughts and feelings? Pictures of yesterday's ball rose up in his memory, in strange contrast to the deathbed before him. Bianchen suddenly appeared. I say, Eugene, I have just seen our head surgeon at the hospital, and I ran all the way back here. If the old man shows any signs of reason, if he begins to talk, cover him with a mustard poultice from the neck to the base of the spine, and send round for us. Dear Bianchen, exclaimed Eugene. Oh, it is an interesting case from a scientific point of view, said the medical student with all the enthusiasm of a neophyte. So, said Eugene, am I really the only one who cares for the poor old man for his own sake? You would not have said so if you had seen me this morning, returned Bianchen, who did not take offense at this speech. Doctors who have seen a good deal of practice never see anything but the disease, but my dear fellow, I can see the patient still. He went. Eugene was left alone with the old man, and with an apprehension of a crisis that set in fact, before very long. Oh, dear boy, is that you? Said Father Gorriot, recognizing Eugene. Do you feel better? Asked the law student, taking his hand. Yes, my head felt as if it were being screwed up in a vice, but now it is set free again. Did you see my girls? They will be here directly. As soon as they know that I am ill, they will hurry here at once. They used to take such care of me in the Rue de la Jussienne. Great heavens, if only my room was fit for them to come into. There has been a young man here who has burned up all my bark fuel. I can hear Christophe coming upstairs, Eugene answered. He is bringing up some firewood that young man has sent you. Good, but how am I to pay for the wood? I have not a penny left, dear boy. I have given everything. I am a pauper now. Well, at least the golden gown was grand, was it not? Oh, what pain this is. Thanks, Christophe. God will reward you, my boy. I have nothing left now. Eugene went over to Christophe and whispered in the man's ear, I will pay you well, and Sylvie too, for your trouble. My daughters told you that they were coming, didn't they, Christophe? Go again to them, and I will give you 5 francs. Tell them that I am not feeling well, that I should like to kiss them both and see them once again before I die. Tell them that, but don't alarm them more than you can help. Rastignac signed to Christophe to go, and the man went. They will come before long, the old man went on. I know them so well. My tender-hearted Delphine. If I am going to die, she will feel it so much. And so will Nassie. I do not want to die. They will cry if I die. And if I die, dear Eugene, I shall not see them any more. It will be very dreary there where I am going. For a father it is hell to be without your children. I have served my apprenticeship already since they married. My heaven was in the Rue de la Jussienne. Eugene, do you think that if I go to heaven I can come back to earth and be near them in spirit? I have heard some such things said. It is true. It is as if I could see them at this moment as they used to be when we all lived in the Rue de la Jussienne. They used to come downstairs of a morning. Good morning, Papa. They used to say, and I would take them on my knees. We had all sorts of little games of play together, and they had such pretty coaxing ways. We always had breakfast together, too, every morning, and they had dinner with me. In fact, I was a father then. I enjoyed my children. They did not think for themselves so long as they lived in the Rue de la Jussienne. They knew nothing of the world. They loved me with all their hearts. Mon Dieu. Why could they not always be little girls? Oh, my head. This racking pain in my head. Oh, forgive me, children, this pain is fearful. It must be agony indeed, for you have used me to endure pain. Mon Dieu. If only I held their hands in mine, I should not feel it at all. Do you think that they are on the way? Christoph is so stupid. I ought to have gone myself. He will see them. But you went to the ball yesterday. Just tell me how they looked. They did not know that I was ill, did they? Or they would not have been dancing, poor little things. Oh, I must not be ill any longer. They stand too much in need of me. Their fortunes are in danger, and such husbands as they are bound to. I must get well. Oh, what pain this is. What pain this is. Oh, I must get well, you see. For they must have money, and I know how to set about making some. I will go to Odessa and manufacture starch there. I am an old hand, I will make millions. Oh, this is agony. Gorriot was silent for a moment. It seemed to require his whole strength to endure the pain. If they were here, I should not complain, he said. So why should I complain now? He seemed to grow drowsy with exhaustion, and lay quietly for a long time. Christoph came back, and Rastignac, thinking that Gorriot was asleep, allowed the man to give his story aloud. First of all, sir, I went to Madame la Comtesse, he said. But she and her husband were so busy that I couldn't get to speak to her. When I insisted that I must see her, de Ristod came out to me himself, and went on like this. Gorriot is dying, is he? Very well, it is the best thing he can do. I want me, de Ristod, to transact some important business. When it is all finished she can go. The gentleman looked angry, I thought. I was just going away when de Ristod came out into an antechamber through a door that I did not notice, and said, Christoph, tell my father that my husband wants me to discuss some matters with him, and I cannot leave the house. The life or death of my children is at stake. But as soon as it is over, I will come. As for Madame la Baronne, that is another story. I could not speak to her either, and I did not even see her. Her waiting woman said, oh yes, but Madame only came back from a ball at 4:45 this morning. She is asleep now, and if I wake her before midday she will be cross. As soon as she rings, I will go and tell her that her father is worse. It will be time enough then to tell her bad news. I begged and I prayed, but there. It was no good. Then I asked for le Baron, but he was out. To think that neither of his daughters should come, exclaimed Rastignac. I will write to them both. Neither of them, cried the old man, sitting upright in bed. They are busy, they are asleep, they will not come. I knew that they would not. Not until you are dying do you know your children. Oh, my friend, do not marry. Do not have children. You give them life. They give you your death blow. You bring them into the world, and they send you out of it. No, they will not come. I have known that these 10 years. Sometimes I have told myself so, but I did not dare to believe it. The tears gathered and stood without overflowing the red sockets. Oh, if I were rich still, if I had kept my money, if I had not given all to them, they would be with me now. They would fawn on me and cover my cheeks with their kisses. I should be living in a great mansion. I should have grand apartments and servants and a fire in my room. And they would be about me all in tears, and their husbands and their children. I should have had all that. Now I have nothing. Money brings everything to you, even your daughters. My money. Oh, where is my money? If I had plenty of money to leave behind me, they would nurse me and tend me. I should hear their voices, I should see their faces. Oh, God. Who knows? They both of them have hearts of stone. I loved them too much. It was not likely that they should love me. A father ought always to be rich. He ought to keep his children well in hand, like unruly horses. I have gone down on my knees to them. Wretches. This is the crowning act that brings the last 10 years to a proper close. If you but knew how much they made of me just after they were married. Oh, this is cruel torture. I had just given them each 800,000 francs. They were bound to be civil to me after that, and their husbands too were civil. I used to go to their houses. It was my kind father here, my dear father there. There was always a place for me at their tables. I used to dine with their husbands now and then, and they were very respectful to me. I was still worth something, they thought. How should they know? I had not said anything about my affairs. It is worthwhile to be civil to a man who has given his daughters 800,000 francs apiece. And they showed me every attention then, but it was all for my money. Grand people are not great. I found that out by experience. I went to the theater with them in their carriage. I might stay as long as I cared to stay at their evening parties. In fact, they acknowledged me their father. Publicly they owned that they were my daughters. But I was always a shrewd one, you see, and nothing was lost upon me. Everything went straight to the mark and pierced my heart. I saw quite well that it was all sham and pretense, but there is no help for such things as these. I felt less at my ease at their dinner table than I did downstairs here. I had nothing to say for myself. So these grand folks would ask in my son-in-law's ear, who may that gentleman be? The father-in-law with the money bags. He is very rich, the devil, he is. They would say, and look again at me with the respect due to my money. Well, if I was in the way sometimes, I paid dearly for my mistakes. And besides, who is perfect? My head is one sore. Dear Monsieur Eugene, I am suffering so now that a man might die of the pain. But it is nothing to be compared with the pain I endured when Anastasie made me feel, for the first time, that I had said something stupid. She looked at me, and that glance of hers opened all my veins. I used to want to know everything, to be learned. And one thing I did learn thoroughly: I knew that I was not wanted here on earth. The next day I went to Delphine for comfort, and what should I do there but make some stupid blunder that made her angry with me. I was like one driven out of his senses. For a week I did not know what to do. I did not dare to go to see them for fear they should reproach me. And that was how they both turned me out of the house. O God, Thou knowest all the misery and anguish that I have endured. Thou hast counted all the wounds that have been dealt to me in these years that have aged and changed me and whitened my hair and drained my life. Why dost Thou make me to suffer so today? Have I not more than expiated the sin of loving them too much? They themselves have been the instruments of vengeance. They have tortured me for my sin of affection. Oh, well, fathers know no better. I loved them so. I went back to them as a gambler goes to the gaming table. This love was my vice, you see, my mistress. They were everything in the world to me. They were always wanting something or other, dresses and ornaments, and what not. Their maids used to tell me what they wanted, and I used to give them the things for the sake of the welcome that they bought for me. But, at the same time, they used to give me little lectures on my behavior in society. They began about it at once. Then they began to feel ashamed of me. That is what comes of having your children well brought up. I could not go to school again at my time of life. This pain is fearful. Mon Dieu, these doctors. If they would open my head, it would give me some relief. Oh, my daughters, Anastasie, Delphine, if I could only see them. Send for the police and make them come to me. Justice is on my side, the whole world is on my side. I have natural rights and the law with me. I protest. The country will go to ruin if a father's rights are trampled underfoot. That is easy to see. The whole world turns on fatherly love. Fatherly love is the foundation of society. It will crumble into ruin when children do not love their fathers. Oh, if I could only see them and hear them, no matter what they said. If I could simply hear their voices, it would soothe the pain. Delphine most of all. But tell them when they come not to look so coldly at me as they do. Oh, my friend, my good Monsieur Eugene, you do not know that it is when all the golden light in a glance suddenly turns to a leaden grey. It has been one long winter here since the light in their eyes shone no more for me. I have had nothing but disappointments to devour. Disappointment has been my daily bread. I have lived on humiliation and insults. I have swallowed down all the affronts for which they sold me my poor stealthy little moments of joy. For I love them so. Think of it. A father hiding himself to get a glimpse of his children. I have given all my life to them, and today they will not give me 1 hour. I am hungering and thirsting for them. My heart is burning in me, but they will not come to bring relief in the agony, for I am dying now. I feel that this is death. Do they not know what it means to trample on a father's corpse? There is a God in heaven who avenges us fathers whether we will or no. Oh, they will come. Come to me, darlings, and give me one more kiss. One last kiss, the viaticum for your father, who will pray God for you in heaven. I will tell him that you have been good children to your father, and plead your cause with God. After all, it is not their fault. I tell you they are innocent, my friend. Tell everyone that it is not their fault, and no one need be distressed on my account. It is all my own fault. I taught them to trample upon me. I love to have it so. It is no one's affair but mine. Man's justice and God's justice have nothing to do in it. God would be unjust if he condemned them for anything they may have done to me. I did not behave to them properly. I was stupid enough to resign my rights. I would have humbled myself in the dust for them. What could you expect? The most beautiful nature, the noblest soul, would have been spoiled by such indulgence. I am a wretch, I am justly punished. I, and I only, am to blame for all their sins. I spoiled them. Today they are as eager for pleasure as they used to be for sugar plums. When they were little girls I indulged them in every whim. They had a carriage of their own when they were 15. They have never been crossed. I am guilty, and not they, but I sinned through love. My heart would open at the sound of their voices. I can hear them. They are coming. Yes, yes, they are coming. The law demands that they should be present at their father's deathbed. The law is on my side. It would only cost them the hire of a cab. I would pay that. Write to them, tell them that I have millions to leave to them. On my word of honor, yes. I am going to manufacture Italian paste foods at Odessa. I understand the trade. There are millions to be made in it. Nobody has thought of the scheme as yet. You see, there will be no waste, no damage in transit, as there always is with wheat and flour. Hey, and starch too. There are millions to be made in the starch trade. You will not be telling a lie. Millions, tell them. And even if they really come because they covet the money, I would rather let them deceive me. And I shall see them in any case. I want my children. I gave them life. They are mine. And he sat upright. The head thus raised, with its scanty white hair, seemed to Eugene like a threat. Every line that could still speak spoke of menace. There, dear father, said Eugene, lie down again. I will write to them at once. As soon as Bianchon comes back I will go for them myself, if they do not come before. If they do not come, repeated the old man, sobbing. Why, I shall be dead before then. I shall die in a fit of rage. Anger is getting the better of me. I can see my whole life at this minute. I have been cheated. They do not love me. They have never loved me all their lives. It is all clear to me. They have not come, and they will not come. The longer they put off their coming, the less they are likely to give me this joy. I know them. They have never cared to guess my disappointments, my sorrows, my wants. They never cared to know my life. They will have no presentiment of my death. They do not even know the secret of my tenderness for them. Yes, I see it all now. I have laid my heart open so often that they take everything I do for them as a matter of course. They might have asked me for the very eyes out of my head and I would have bidden them to pluck them out. They think that all fathers are like theirs. You should always make your value felt. Their own children will avenge me. Why, for their own sakes they should come to me. Make them understand that they are laying up retribution for their own deathbeds. All crimes are summed up in this one. Go to them. Just tell them that if they stay away it will be parricide. There is enough laid to their charge already without adding that to the list. Cry aloud as I do now, Nasi, Delphini, here. Come to your father. The father who has been so kind to you is lying ill, not a sound. No one comes. Then am I to die like a dog? This is to be my reward. I am forsaken at the last. They are wicked, heartless women. Curses on them, I loathe them. I shall rise at night from my grave to curse them again. For, after all, my friends, have I done wrong? They are behaving very badly to me, eh? What am I saying? Did you not tell me just now that Delphini is in the room? She is more tender-hearted than her sister. Eugene, you are my son, you know. You will love her. Be a father to her. Her sister is very unhappy, and there are their fortunes. Oh, God. I am dying. This anguish is almost more than I can bear. Cut off my head. Leave me nothing but my heart. Christophe, shouted Eugene, alarmed by the way in which the old man moaned, and by his cries. Go for Bianchon, and send a cab here for me. I am going to fetch them, dear father. I will bring them back to you. Make them come. Compel them to come. Call out the guard, the military, anything and everything, but make them come. He looked at Eugene, and a last gleam of intelligence shone in his eyes. Go to the authorities, to the public prosecutor, let them bring them here. Come they shall. But you have cursed them. Who said that? Said the old man in dull amazement. You know quite well that I love them, I adore them. I shall be quite well again if I can see them. Go for them, my good neighbor, my dear boy, you are kind-hearted. I wish I could repay you for your kindness, but I have nothing to give you now, save the blessing of a dying man. Oh, if I could only see Delphini, to tell her to pay my debt to you. If the other cannot come, bring Delphini to me at any rate. Tell her that unless she comes, you will not love her any more. She is so fond of you that she will come to me then. Give me something to drink. There is a fire in my bowels. Press something against my forehead. If my daughters would lay their hands there, I think I should get better. Mon Dieu, who will recover their money for them when I am gone? I will manufacture vermicelli out in Odessa. I will go to Odessa for their sakes. Here is something to drink, said Eugene, supporting the dying man on his left arm, while he held a cup of tisane to Gorriot's lips. How you must love your own father and mother, said the old man, and grasped the student's hand in both of his. It was a feeble, trembling grasp. I am going to die. I shall die without seeing my daughters. Do you understand? To be always thirsting and never to drink. That has been my life for the last 10 years. I have no daughters. My sons-in-law killed them. No, since their marriages they have been dead to me. Fathers should petition the chambers to pass a law against marriage. If you love your daughters, do not let them marry. A son-in-law is a rascal who poisons a girl's mind and contaminates her whole nature. Let us have no more marriages. It robs us of our daughters. We are left alone upon our deathbeds, and they are not with us then. They ought to pass a law for dying fathers. This is awful. It cries for vengeance. They cannot come, because my sons-in-law forbid them. Kill them. Restod and the Alsatian, kill them both. They have murdered me between them. Death or my daughters. Oh, it is too late. I am dying, and they are not here. Dying without them. Nasi. Fine. Why do you not come to me? Your papa is going. Dear Father Gorriot, come yourself. There, lie quietly and rest. Don't worry yourself, don't think. I shall not see them. Oh, the agony of it. You shall see them. Really? Cried the old man, still wondering. Oh, shall I see them? I shall see them and hear their voices. I shall die happy. Oh, well, after all, I do not wish to live. I cannot stand this much longer. This pain that grows worse and worse. But oh, to see them, to touch their dresses, oh, nothing but their dresses, that is very little. Still, to feel something that belongs to them. Let me touch their hair with my fingers. Their hair. His head fell back on the pillow, as if a sudden heavy blow had struck him down, but his hands groped feebly over the quilt, as if to find his daughter's hair. My blessing on them, he said, making an effort. My blessing. His voice died away. Just at that moment Bianchen came into the room. I met Christophe, he said. He is gone for your cab. Then he looked at the patient, and raised the closed eyelids with his fingers. The two students saw how dead and lustreless the eyes beneath had grown. He will not get over this, I am sure, said Bianchen. He felt the old man's pulse, and laid a hand over his heart. The machinery works still. More is the pity. In his state it would be better for him to die. Oh, my word, it would. What is the matter with you? You are as pale as death. Dear fellow, the moans and cries that I have just heard. There is a God. Oh, yes, there is a God, and he has made a better world for us, or this world of ours would be a nightmare. I could have cried like a child. But this is too tragical, and I am sick at heart. We want a lot of things, you know. And where is the money to come from? Rastignac took out his watch. There, be quick and pawn it. I do not want to stop on the way to the Rue du Helder. There is not a moment to lose, I am afraid, and I must wait here till Christophe comes back. I have not a farthing. I shall have to pay the cabman when I get home again. Rastignac rushed down the stairs and drove off to the Rue du Helder. The awful scene through which he had just passed quickened his imagination, and he grew fiercely indignant. He reached de Ristod's house only to be told by the servant that his mistress could see no one. But I have brought a message from her father, who is dying, Rastignac told the man. The Count has given us the strictest orders, sir. If it is de Ristod who has given the orders, tell him that his father-in-law is dying, and that I am here, and must speak with him at once. The man went out. Eugene waited for a long while. Perhaps her father is dying at this moment, he thought. Then the man came back, and Eugene followed him to the little drawing room. De Ristod was standing before the fearless grate, and did not ask his visitor to seat himself. Monsieur le Comte, said Rastignac, Gorriot, your father-in-law, is lying at the point of death in a squalid den in the Latin Quarter. He has not a penny to pay for firewood. He is expected to die at any moment, and keeps calling for his daughter. I feel very little affection for Gorriot, sir, as you probably are aware, the Count answered coolly. His character has been compromised. In connection with me, de Ristod. He is the author of the misfortunes that have embittered my life and troubled my peace of mind. It is a matter of perfect indifference to me if he lives or dies. Now you know my feelings with regard to him. Public opinion may blame me, but I care nothing for public opinion. Just now I have other and much more important matters to think about than the things that fools and chatterers may say about me. As for me, de Ristod, she cannot leave the house. She is in no condition to do so, and, besides, I shall not allow her to leave it. Tell her father that as soon as she has done her duty by her husband and child she shall go to see him. If she has any love for her father, she can be free to go to him, if she chooses, in a few seconds. It lies entirely with her. Monsieur le Comte, it is no business of mine to criticize your conduct. You can do as you please with your wife, but may I count upon your keeping your word with me? Well, then, promise me to tell her that her father has not 24 hours to live. That he looks in vain for her, and has cursed her already as he lies on his deathbed. That is all I ask. You can tell her yourself, the Count answered, impressed by the thrill of indignation in Eugene's voice. The Count led the way to the room where his wife usually sat. She was drowned in tears, and lay crouching in the depths of an armchair, as if she were tired of life and longed to die. It was piteous to see her. Before venturing to look at Rastignac, she glanced at her husband in evident and abject terror that spoke of complete prostration of body and mind. She seemed crushed by a tyranny both mental and physical. The Count jerked his head towards her. She construed this as a permission to speak. I heard all that you said, monsieur. Tell my father that if he knew all he would forgive me. I did not think there was such torture in the world as this. It is more than I can endure, monsieur, but I will not give way as long as I live, she said, turning to her husband. I am a mother. Tell my father that I have never sinned against him in spite of appearances. She cried aloud in her despair. Eugene bowed to the husband and wife. He guessed the meaning of the scene, and that this was a terrible crisis in the Countess' life. De Ristod's manner had told him that his errand was a fruitless one. He saw that Anastasie had no longer any liberty of action. He came away mazed and bewildered, and hurried to meet de Nucingen. Delphine was in bed. Poor dear Eugene, I am ill, she said. I caught cold after the ball, and I am afraid of pneumonia. I am waiting for the doctor to come. If you were at death's door, Eugene broke in, you must be carried somehow to your father. He is calling for you. If you could hear the faintest of those cries, you would not feel ill any longer. Eugene, I dare say my father is not quite so ill as you say. But I cannot bear to do anything that you do not approve, so I will do just as you wish. As for him, he would die of grief, I know, if I went out to see him and brought on a dangerous illness. Well, I will go as soon as I have seen the doctor. Oh, she cried out, you are not wearing your watch, how is that? Eugene reddened. Eugene. If you have sold it already or lost it. Oh, it would be very wrong of you. The student bent over Delphine and said in her ear, do you want to know? Very well, then, you shall know. Your father has nothing left to pay for the shroud that they will lay him in this evening. Your watch has been pawned, for I had nothing either. Delphine sprang out of bed, ran to her desk, and took out her purse. She gave it to Eugene, and rang the bell, crying, I will go at once, Eugene. Leave me, I will dress. Why, I should be an unnatural daughter. Go back. I will be there before you. Therese, she called to the waiting woman, ask de Nucingen to come upstairs at once and speak to me. Eugene was almost happy when he reached the Rue Neuve Sainte Genevieve. He was so glad to bring the news to the dying man that one of his daughters was coming. He fumbled in Delphine's purse for money so as to dismiss the cab at once, and discovered that the young, beautiful, and wealthy woman of fashion had only 70 francs in her private purse. He climbed the stairs and found Bianchon supporting Gorriot, while the house surgeon from the hospital was applying moxas to the patient's back under the direction of the physician. It was the last expedient of science, and it was tried in vain. Can you feel them? Asked the physician. But Gorriot had caught sight of Rastignac, and answered, they are coming, are they not? There is hope yet, said the surgeon. He can speak. Yes, said Eugene, Delphine is coming. Oh, that is nothing, said Bianchon. He has been talking about his daughters all the time. He calls for them as a man impaled calls for water, they say. We may as well give up, said the physician, addressing the surgeon. Nothing more can be done now. The case is hopeless. Bianchon and the house surgeon stretched the dying man out again on his loathsome bed. But the sheets ought to be changed, added the physician. Even if there is no hope left, something is due to human nature. I shall come back again, Bianchon, he said, turning to the medical student. If he complains again, rub some laudanum over the diaphragm. He went, and the house surgeon went with him. Come, Eugene, pluck up heart, my boy, said Bianchon, as soon as they were alone. We must set about changing his sheets, and put him into a clean shirt. Go and tell Sylvie to bring some sheets and come and help us to make the bed. Eugene went downstairs, and found me Vocker engaged in setting the table. Sylvie was helping her. Eugene had scarcely opened his mouth before the widow walked up to him with the acidulous sweet smile of a cautious shopkeeper who is anxious neither to lose money nor to offend a customer. My dear Monsieur Eugene, she said, when he had spoken, you know quite as well as I do that Father Gorriot has not a brass farthing left. If you give out clean linen for a man who is just going to turn up his eyes, you are not likely to see your sheets again, for one is sure to be wanted to wrap him in. Now, you owe me 144 francs as it is, add 40 francs for the pair of sheets, and then there are several little things, besides the candle that Sylvie will give you. Altogether it will all mount up to at least 200 francs, which is more than a poor widow like me can afford to lose. Lord. Now, Monsieur Eugene, look at it fairly. I have lost quite enough in these 5 days since this run of ill luck set in for me. I would rather than 10 crowns that the old gentleman had moved out as you said. It sets the other lodgers against the house. It would not take much to make me send him to the workhouse. In short, just put yourself in my place. I have to think of my establishment first, for I have my own living to make. Eugene hurried up to Gorriot's room. Bianchon, he cried, the money for the watch. There it is on the table, or the 360 odd francs that are left of it. I paid up all the old scores out of it before they let me have the things. The pawn ticket lies there under the money. Rastignac hurried downstairs. Here, madam, he said in disgust, let us square accounts. Gorriot will not stay much longer in your house, nor shall I. Yes, he will go out feet foremost, poor old gentleman, she said, counting the francs with a half-facetious, half-lugubrious expression. Let us get this over, said Rastignac. Sylvie, look out some sheets, and go upstairs to help the gentleman. You won't forget, Sylvie, said me. Vocker in Eugene's ear. She has been sitting up these 2 nights. As soon as Eugene's back was turned, the old woman hurried after her handmaid. Take the sheets that have had the sides turned into the middle, number 7. Lord. They are plenty good enough for a corpse, she said in Sylvie's ear. Eugene, by this time, was part of the way upstairs, and did not overhear the elderly economist. Quick, said Bianchon, let us change his shirt. Hold him upright. Eugene went to the head of the bed and supported the dying man, while Bianchon drew off his shirt. And then Gorriot made a movement as if he tried to clutch something to his breast, uttering a low inarticulate moaning the while, like some dumb animal in mortal pain. Oh, yes, cried Bianchon. It is the little locket and the chain made of hair that he wants. We took it off a while ago when we put the blisters on him. Poor fellow. He must have it again. There it lies on the chimney piece. Eugene went to the chimney piece and found the little plate of faded golden hair. Gorriot's hair, no doubt. He read the name on the little round locket, Anastasie on the one side, Delphine on the other. It was the symbol of his own heart that the father always wore on his breast. The curls of hair inside the locket were so fine and soft that it was plain they had been taken from 2 childish heads. When the old man felt the locket once more, his chest heaved with a long deep sigh of satisfaction, like a groan. It was something terrible to see, for it seemed as if the last quiver of the nerves were laid bare to their eyes, the last communication of sense to the mysterious point within whence our sympathies come and whither they go. A delirious joy lighted up the distorted face. The terrific and vivid force of the feeling that had survived the power of thought made such an impression on the students, that the dying man felt their hot tears falling on him, and gave a shrill cry of delight. Nasty. Fine. There is life in him yet, said Bianchon. What does he go on living for? Said Sylvie. To suffer, answered Rastignac. Bianchon made a sign to his friend to follow his example, knelt down and pressed his arms under the sick man, and Rastignac on the other side did the same, so that Sylvie, standing in readiness, might draw the sheet from beneath and replace it with the one that she had brought. Those tears, no doubt, had misled Gorriot, for he gathered up all his remaining strength in a last effort, stretched out his hands, groped for the students' heads, and as his fingers caught convulsively at their hair, they heard a faint whisper. Oh, my angels. 2 words, 2 inarticulate murmurs, shaped into words by the soul which fled forth with them as they left his lips. Poor dear, cried Sylvie, melted by that exclamation. The expression of the great love raised for the last time to a sublime height by that most ghastly and involuntary of lies. The father's last breath must have been a sigh of joy, and in that sigh his whole life was summed up. He was cheated even at the last. They laid Father Gorriot upon his wretched bed with reverent hands. Thenceforward there was no expression on his face, only the painful traces of the struggle between life and death that was going on in the machine. For that kind of cerebral consciousness that distinguishes between pleasure and pain in a human being was extinguished. It was only a question of time and the mechanism itself would be destroyed. He will lie like this for several hours, and die so quietly at last, that we shall not know when he goes. There will be no rattle in the throat. The brain must be completely suffused. As he spoke there was a footstep on the staircase, and a young woman hastened up, panting for breath. "She has come too late," said Rastignac. But it was not Delphine. It was Therese, her waiting woman, who stood in the doorway. "Monsieur Eugene," she said, "Monsieur and Madame have had a terrible scene about some money that Madame, poor thing, wanted for her father. She fainted, and the doctor came, and she had to be bled, calling out all the while, 'My father is dying. I want to see Papa.' It was heartbreaking to hear her." "That will do, Therese. If she came now, it would be trouble thrown away. Gorriot cannot recognize anyone now. Poor, dear gentleman, is he as bad at that?" said Therese. "You don't want me now, I must go and look after my dinner." "It is 4:30, remarked Sylvie. The next instant she all but collided with me. Dearie stood on the landing outside. There was something awful and appalling in the sudden apparition of the Countess. She saw the bed of death by the dim light of the single candle, and her tears flowed at the sight of her father's passive features, from which the life had almost ebbed. Bianchon with thoughtful tact left the room. "I could not escape soon enough," she said to Rastignac. The student bowed sadly in reply. Dearie took her father's hand and kissed it. "Forgive me, father. You used to say that my voice would call you back from the grave. Oh, come back for one moment to bless your penitent daughter. Do you hear me? Oh, this is fearful. No one on earth will ever bless me henceforth. Everyone hates me. No one loves me but you in all the world. My own children will hate me. Take me with you, father. I will love you, I will take care of you." He does not hear me. I am mad. She fell on her knees and gazed wildly at the human wreck before her. "My cup of misery is full," she said, turning her eyes upon Eugene. Trails has fled, leaving enormous debts behind him, and I have found out that he was deceiving me. My husband will never forgive me, and I have left my fortune in his hands. I have lost all my illusions. Alas, I have forsaken the one heart that loved me. She pointed to her father as she spoke, and for whom I have held his kindness cheap, and slighted his affection. Many and many a time I have given him pain, ungrateful wretch that I am. He knew it, said Rastignac. Just then Gorriot's eyelids unclosed. It was only a muscular contraction, but the Countess' sudden start of reviving hope was no less dreadful than the dying eyes. "Is it possible that he can hear me?" cried the Countess. "No," she answered herself, and sat down beside the bed. As dearie seemed to wish to sit by her father, Eugene went down to take a little food. The boarders were already assembled. "Well," remarked the painter, as he joined them, "it seems that there is to be a death-orama upstairs." "Charles, I think you might find something less painful to joke about," said Eugene. "So we may not laugh here," returned the painter. "What harm does it do?" Bianchon said that the old man was quite insensible. "Well, then," said the employee from the museum, "he will die as he has lived." "My father is dead!" shrieked the Countess. The terrible cry brought Sylvie, Rastignac, and Bianchon. Dearie had fainted away. When she recovered they carried her downstairs, and put her into the cab that stood waiting at the door. Eugene sent Therese with her, and bade the maid take the Countess to Nucingen. Bianchon came down to them. "Yes, he is dead," he said. "Come, sit down to dinner, gentlemen," said Vocker, "or the soup will be cold." The two students sat down together. "What is the next thing to be done?" Eugene asked of Bianchon. "I have closed his eyes and composed his limbs," said Bianchon. "When the certificate has been officially registered at the mayor's office, we will sew him in his winding sheet and bury him somewhere. What do you think we ought to do? He will not smell at his bread like this anymore," said the painter, mimicking the old man's little trick. "Oh, hang it all!" cried the tutor. "Let Father Gorriot drop, and let us have something else for a change. He is a standing dish, and we have had him with every sauce this hour or more. It is one of the privileges of the good city of Paris that anybody may be born, or live, or die there without attracting any attention whatsoever. Let us profit by the advantages of civilization. There are 50 or 60 deaths every day. If you have a mind to do it, you can sit down at any time and wail over whole hecatombs of dead in Paris. Father Gorriot has gone off the hooks, has he? So much the better for him. If you venerate his memory, keep it to yourselves, and let the rest of us feed in peace." "Oh, to be sure," said the widow, "it is all the better for him that he is dead. It looks as though he had had trouble enough, poor soul, while he was alive." And this was all the funeral oration delivered over him who had been for Eugene the type and embodiment of fatherhood. The 15 lodgers began to talk as usual. When Bianchon and Eugene had satisfied their hunger, the rattle of spoons and forks, the boisterous conversation, the expressions on the faces that bespoke various degrees of want of feeling, gluttony, or indifference, everything about them made them shiver with loathing. They went out to find a priest to watch that night with the dead. It was necessary to measure their last pious cares by the scanty sum of money that remained. Before 9 o'clock that evening the body was laid out on the bare sacking of the bedstead in the desolate room. A lighted candle stood on either side, and the priest watched at the foot. Rastignac made inquiries of this latter as to the expenses of the funeral, and wrote to the Baron de Nucingen and the Comte de Ristod, entreating both gentlemen to authorize their man of business to defray the charges of laying their father-in-law in the grave. He sent Christophe with the letters. Then he went to bed, tired out, and slept. Next day Bianchon and Rastignac were obliged to take the certificate to the registrar themselves, and by 12 o'clock the formalities were completed. 2 hours went by, no word came from the Count nor from the Baron. Nobody appeared to act for them, and Rastignac had already been obliged to pay the priest. Sylvie asked 10 francs for sewing the old man in his winding sheet and making him ready for the grave, and Eugene and Bianchon calculated that they had scarcely sufficient to pay for the funeral if nothing was forthcoming from the dead man's family. So it was the medical student who laid him in a pauper's coffin, dispatched from Bianchon's hospital, whence he obtained it at a cheaper rate. "Let us play those wretches a trick," said he. "Go to the cemetery, buy a grave for 5 years at per Lachaise, and arrange with the church and the undertaker to have a third-class funeral. If the daughters and their husbands decline to repay you, you can carve this on the headstone: here lies M. Gorriot, father of the Comtesse de Ristod and the Baron de Nucingen, interred at the expense of 2 students." Eugene took part of his friend's advice, but only after he had gone in person first to M. and me de Nucingen, and then to M. and me de Ristod, a fruitless errand. He went no further than the doorstep in either house. The servants had received strict orders to admit no one. "Monsieur and Madame can see no visitors. They have just lost their father, and are in deep grief over their loss." Eugene's Parisian experience told him that it was idle to press the point. Something clutched strangely at his heart when he saw that it was impossible to reach Delphine. "Sell some of your ornaments," he wrote hastily in the porter's room, "so that your father may be decently laid in his last resting place." He sealed the note, and begged the porter to give it to Therese for her mistress. But the man took it to the Baron de Nucingen, who flung the note into the fire. Eugene, having finished his errands, returned to the lodging house about 3 o'clock. In spite of himself, the tears came into his eyes. The coffin, in its scanty covering of black cloth, was standing there on the pavement before the gate, on 2 chairs. A withered sprig of hyssop was soaking in the holy water bowl of silver-plated copper. There was not a soul in the street, not a passer-by had stopped to sprinkle the coffin. There was not even an attempt at a black drapery over the wicket. It was a pauper who lay there. No one made a pretense of mourning for him. He had neither friends nor kindred. There was no one to follow him to the grave. Bianchon's duties compelled him to be at the hospital, but he had left a few lines for Eugene, telling his friend about the arrangements he had made for the burial service. The house student's note told Rastignac that a mass was beyond their means, that the ordinary office for the dead was cheaper and must suffice, and that he had sent word to the undertaker by Christophe. Eugene had scarcely finished reading Bianchon's scrawl, when he looked up and saw the little circular gold locket that contained the hair of Gorriot's 2 daughters in me. Vocker's hands. "How dared you take it?" he asked. "Good Lord, is that to be buried along with him?" retorted Sylvie. "It is gold. Of course it shall," Eugene answered indignantly. "He shall at any rate take one thing that may represent his daughters into the grave with him." When the hearse came, Eugene had the coffin carried into the house again, unscrewed the lid, and reverently laid on the old man's breast the token that recalled the days when Delphine and Anastasie were innocent little maidens, before they began to think for themselves, as he had moaned out in his agony. Rastignac and Christophe and the 2 undertaker's men were the only followers of the funeral. The church of Saint Etienne du Mont was only a little distance from the Rue Neuve Saint Genevieve. When the coffin had been deposited in a low, dark, little chapel, the law student looked round in vain for Gorriot's 2 daughters or their husbands. Christophe was his only fellow mourner. Christophe, who appeared to think it was his duty to attend the funeral of the man who had put him in the way of such handsome tips. As they waited there in the chapel for the 2 priests, the chorister, and the beadle, Rastignac grasped Christophe's hand. He could not utter a word just then. "Yes, Monsieur Eugene," said Christophe. "He was a good and worthy man, who never said one word louder than another. He never did anyone any harm, and gave nobody any trouble. The two priests, the chorister and the beadle came, and said and did as much as could be expected for 70 francs in an age when religion cannot afford to say prayers for nothing. The ecclesiastics chanted a psalm, the Libera Nos and the De Profundis. The whole service lasted about 20 minutes. There was but one morning coach, which the priest and chorister agreed to share with Eugene and Christophe. There is no one else to follow us, remarked the priest, so we may as well go quickly, and so save time. It is 5:30. But just as the coffin was put in the hearse, 2 empty carriages, with the armorial bearings of the Comte de Ristod and the Baron de Nucingen, arrived and followed in the procession to Père-Lachaise. At 6 o'clock Gorriot's coffin was lowered into the grave, his daughter's servants standing round the while. The ecclesiastic recited the short prayer that the students could afford to pay for, and then both priest and lackeys disappeared at once. The two grave diggers flung in several spadefuls of earth, and then stopped and asked Rastignac for their fee. Eugene felt in vain in his pocket, and was obliged to borrow 5 francs of Christophe. This thing, so trifling in itself, gave Rastignac a terrible pang of distress. It was growing dusk, the damp twilight fretted his nerves. He gazed down into the grave, and the tears he shed were drawn from him by the sacred emotion, a single-hearted sorrow. When such tears fall on earth, their radiance reaches heaven. And with that tear that fell on Father Gorriot's grave, Eugene Rastignac's youth ended. He folded his arms and gazed at the clouded sky. And Christophe, after a glance at him, turned and went. Rastignac was left alone. He went a few paces further, to the highest point of the cemetery, and looked out over Paris and the windings of the Seine. The lamps were beginning to shine on either side of the river. His eyes turned almost eagerly to the space between the column of the Place Vendôme and the cupola of the Invalides. There lay the shining world that he had wished to reach. He glanced over that humming hive, seeming to draw a foretaste of its honey, and said magniloquently, "Henceforth there is war between us." And by way of throwing down the glove to society, Rastignac went to dine with me, de Nucingen. Addendum. The following personages appear in other stories of the human comedy. Ajuda Pinto, Marquis Miguel de Scenes from a Coartisan's Life, The Secrets of a Princess Beatrix. Beaucent Marquis, An Episode Under the Terror. Beaucent, Vicomte de the Deserted Woman. Beaucent, Vicomtesse de the Deserted Woman, Albert Soveras. Bianchon, Horace the Atheist's Mass, Caesar by Roto, The Commission in Lunacy, Lost Illusions, A Distinguished Provincial at Paris, A Bachelor's Establishment, The Secrets of a Princess, The Government Clerk's Pirate, A Study of Women, Scenes from a Coartisan's Life, Henri, The Seamy Side of History, The Magic Skin, A Second Home, A Prince of Bohemia, Letters of Two Brides, The Muse of the Department, The Imaginary Mistress, The Middle Classes, Cousin Betty, The Country Parson. In addition, M. Bianchon narrated the following. Another Study of Women, La Grande Critique. Bibi Lupin, Chief of Secret Police, called himself Gonduro, Scenes from a Coartisan's Life. Carigliano, Maréchal, Duc de Sarracine. Colin, Jot, Lost Illusions. A Distinguished Provincial at Paris, Scenes from a Coartisan's Life, The Member for Arcis. Derville Gobska, Start in Life, The Gonderville Mystery, Colonel Chabert, Scenes from a Coartisan's Life. Franceschini, Colonel, The Member for Arcis. Golothian, Princess, a Daughter of Eve. Gobsk, Jean Esther van Gobsk, Caesar by Roto, The Government Clerks, The Unconscious Humorists. Jacques M. de Beaucent's Butler, The Deserted Woman. Langues, Duchess Antoinette d. the 13. Mars, Henry d. the 13, The Unconscious Humorists. Another Study of Women, The Lily of the Valley, Jealousies of a Country Town, Ursule Myrout, A Marriage Settlement, Lost Illusions, A Distinguished Provincial at Paris, Letters of Two Brides, The Ball at So Modest Mignon, The Secrets of a Princess, The Gonderville Mystery, A Daughter of Eve. Maurice de Ristod's Valet, Gobsk. Montrevaux, General Marquis Armand d. the 13, Lost Illusions, A Distinguished Provincial at Paris. Another Study of Women, Pirette, The Member for Arcis. Nucingen, Baron Frederick d. The Firm of Nucingen, Pirette, Caesar by Roto, Lost Illusions, A Distinguished Provincial at Paris, Scenes from a Coartisan's Life. Another Study of Women, The Secrets of a Princess, A Man of Business, Cousin Betty, The Muse of the Department, The Unconscious Humorists. Nucingen, Bearod Delphine d. the 13, Eugenie Grandet, Caesar by Roto, Melmoth, Reconciled, Lost Illusions, A Distinguished Provincial at Paris, The Commission in Lunacy, Scenes from a Coartisan's Life, Modest Mignon, The Firm of Nucingen. Another Study of Women, A Daughter of Eve, The Member for Arcis. Poiret, The Government Clerks, A Start in Life, Scenes from a Coartisan's Life, The Middle Classes. Poiret, Madame, ni Christine Michel Michonneau, Scenes from a Coartisan's Life, The Middle Classes. Rastignac, Baron and Bearodi, Eugene's Parents, Lost Illusions. Rastignac Eugene D. A distinguished provincial at Paris. Scenes from a courtesan's life. The ball at So the interdiction. A study of woman. Another study of woman. The magic skin. The secrets of a princess. A daughter of Eve. The Gonderville mystery. The firm of Newson and cousin Betty. The member for Arcis. The unconscious humorists. Rastignac Laura Rose and Agath D. Lost illusions. The member for Arcis. Rastignac Monseigneur Gabriel D. The country parson. A daughter of Eve. Restod Comte de Gobsk. Restod Comtesse Anastasie de Gobsk. Salary or scenes from a courtesan's life. Taillefer Jean Frederick. The firm of Newson and the magic skin. The Red Inn. Taillefer Victorine. The Red Inn. Therese. A daughter of Eve. Tissot Pierre Francois. A prince of Bohemia. Trails Comte Maxime de Caesar by Roto Gobskarsel Myrut. A man of business. The member for Arcis. The secrets of a princess. Cousin Betty. The member for Arcis. Beatrix. The unconscious humorists. End of the project. Gutenberg e-book of Father Gorriot by Honor de Balzac. End of this project. Gutenberg e-book Father Gorriot. This file should be named 1237 txt or 1237 zip. This and all associated files of various formats will be found in http www.gutenbergnet 1237. Produced by Dagny. Updated editions will replace the previous one. The old editions will be renamed. Creating the works from public domain print editions means that no one owns a United States copyright in these works, so the Foundation and you can copy and distribute it in the United States without permission and without paying copyright royalties. Special rules set forth in the general terms of use part of this license apply to copying and distributing Project Gutenberg TM electronic works to protect the Project Gutenberg TM concept and trademark. Project Gutenberg is a registered trademark and may not be used if you charge for the ebooks unless you receive specific permission. If you do not charge anything for copies of this ebook, complying with the rules is very easy. You may use this ebook for nearly any purpose such as creation of derivative works, reports, performances and research. They may be modified and printed and given away. You may do practically anything with public domain ebooks. Redistribution is subject to the trademark license, especially commercial redistribution. Start. Full license. The full Project Gutenberg license. Please read this before you distribute or use this work. To protect the Project Gutenberg TM mission of promoting the free distribution of electronic works, by using or distributing this work, or any other work associated in any way with the phrase Project Gutenberg, you agree to comply with all the terms of the full Project Gutenberg TM license, available with this file or online at http Gutenberg.net license. Section 1. General Terms of Use and Redistributing Project Gutenberg TM electronic works. 1a. By reading or using any part of this Project Gutenberg TM electronic work, you indicate that you have read, understand, agree to and accept all the terms of this license and intellectual property, trademark copyright agreement. If you do not agree to abide by all the terms of this agreement, you must cease using and return or destroy all copies of Project Gutenberg TM electronic works in your possession. If you paid a fee for obtaining a copy of or access to a Project Gutenberg TM electronic work and you do not agree to be bound by the terms of this agreement, you may obtain a refund from the person or entity to whom you paid the fee as set forth in paragraph 1e8. 1b. Project Gutenberg is a registered trademark. It may only be used on or associated in any way with an electronic work by people who agree to be bound by the terms of this agreement. There are a few things that you can do with most Project Gutenberg TM electronic works even without complying with the full terms of this agreement. See paragraph 1c below. There are a lot of things you can do with Project Gutenberg TM electronic works if you follow the terms of this agreement, and help preserve free future access to Project Gutenberg TM electronic works. See paragraph 1e below. 1c. The Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, the Foundation or PLAF, owns a compilation copyright in the collection of Project Gutenberg TM electronic works. Nearly all the individual works in the collection are in the public domain in the United States. If an individual work is in the public domain in the United States and you are located in the United States, we do not claim a right to prevent you from copying, distributing, performing, displaying or creating derivative works based on the work as long as all references to Project Gutenberg are removed. Of course, we hope that you will support the Project Gutenberg TM mission of promoting free access to electronic works by freely sharing Project Gutenberg TM works in compliance with the terms of this agreement for keeping the Project Gutenberg TM name associated with the work. You can easily comply with the terms of this agreement by keeping this work in the same format with its attached full Project Gutenberg TM license when you share it without charge with others. 1D. The copyright laws of the place where you are located also govern what you can do with this work. Copyright laws in most countries are in a constant state of change. If you are outside the United States, check the laws of your country in addition to the terms of this agreement before downloading, copying, displaying, performing, distributing or creating derivative works based on this work or any other Project Gutenberg TM work. The Foundation makes no representations concerning the copyright status of any work in any country outside the United States. 1E. Unless you have removed all references to Project Gutenberg. 1E1. The following sentence, with active links to, or other immediate access to, the full Project Gutenberg TM license must appear prominently whenever any copy of a Project Gutenberg TM work, any work on which the phrase Project Gutenberg appears, or with which the phrase Project Gutenberg is associated, is accessed, displayed, performed, viewed, copied or distributed. This ebook is for the use of anyone anywhere at no cost and with almost no restrictions whatsoever. You may copy it, give it away or reuse it under the terms of the Project Gutenberg license included with this ebook or online at www.gutenberg.net. 1E2. If an individual Project Gutenberg TM electronic work is derived from the public domain, does not contain a notice indicating that it is posted with permission of the copyright holder, the work can be copied and distributed to anyone in the United States without paying any fees or charges. If you are redistributing or providing access to a work with the phrase Project Gutenberg associated with or appearing on the work, you must comply either with the requirements of paragraphs 1E1 through 1E7 or obtain permission for the use of the work and the Project Gutenberg TM trademark as set forth in paragraphs 1E8 or 1E9. 1E3. If an individual Project Gutenberg TM electronic work is posted with the permission of the copyright holder, your use and distribution must comply with both paragraphs 1E1 through 1E7 and any additional terms imposed by the copyright holder. Additional terms will be linked to the Project Gutenberg TM license for all works posted with the permission of the copyright holder found at the beginning of this work. 1E4. Do not unlink or detach or remove the full Project Gutenberg TM license terms from this work, or any files containing a part of this work or any other work associated with Project Gutenberg TM. 1E5. Do not copy, display, perform, distribute or redistribute this electronic work, or any part of this electronic work, without prominently displaying the sentence set forth in paragraph 1E1 with active links or immediate access to the full terms of the Project Gutenberg TM license. 1E6. You may convert to and distribute this work in any binary, compressed, marked up, non-proprietary or proprietary form, including any word processing or hypertext form. However, if you provide access to or distribute copies of a Project Gutenberg TM work in a format other than plain vanilla ASCII or other format used in the official version posted on the official Project Gutenberg TM website, www.gutenberg.net, you must, at no additional cost, fee or expense to the user, provide a copy, a means of exporting a copy, or a means of obtaining a copy upon request, of the work in its original plain vanilla ASCII or other form. Any alternate format must include the full Project Gutenberg TM license as specified in paragraph 1E1. 1E7. Do not charge a fee for access to, viewing, displaying, performing, copying or distributing any Project Gutenberg TM works unless you comply with paragraph 1E8 or 1E9. 1E8. You may charge a reasonable fee for copies of or providing access to or distributing Project Gutenberg TM electronic works provided that you pay a royalty fee of 20% of the gross profits you derive from the use of Project Gutenberg TM works calculated using the method you already used to calculate your applicable taxes. The fee is owed to the owner of the Project Gutenberg TM trademark, but he has agreed to donate royalties under this paragraph to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. Royalty payments must be paid within 60 days following each date on which you prepare, or are legally required to prepare, your periodic tax returns. Royalty payments should be clearly marked as such and sent to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation at the address specified in Section 4, Information about donations to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. You provide a full refund of any money paid by a user who notifies you in writing, or by email, within 30 days of receipt that he does not agree to the terms of the full Project Gutenberg TM license. You must require such a user to return or destroy all copies of the works possessed in a physical medium and discontinue all use of and all access to other copies of Project Gutenberg TM works. You provide, in accordance with paragraph 1F3, a full refund of any money paid for a work or a replacement copy if a defect in the electronic work is discovered and reported to you within 90 days of receipt of the work. You comply with all other terms of this agreement for free distribution of Project Gutenberg TM works. 1E9. If you wish to charge a fee or distribute a Project Gutenberg TM electronic work or group of works on different terms than are set forth in this agreement, you must obtain permission in writing from both the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation and Michael Hart, the owner of the Project Gutenberg TM trademark. Contact the Foundation as set forth in Section 3 below. 1F. 1F1. Project Gutenberg volunteers and employees expend considerable effort to identify, do copyright research on, transcribe and proofread public domain works in creating the Project Gutenberg TM collection. Despite these efforts, Project Gutenberg TM electronic works, and the medium on which they may be stored, may contain defects such as, but not limited to, incomplete, inaccurate or corrupt data, transcription errors, a copyright or other intellectual property infringement, a defective or damaged disk or other medium, a computer virus, or computer codes that damage or cannot be read by your equipment. 1F2. Limited warranty, disclaimer of damages except for the right of replacement or refund described in paragraph 1F3. The Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, the owner of the Project Gutenberg TM trademark, and any other party distributing a Project Gutenberg TM electronic work under this agreement, disclaim all liability to you for damages, costs and expenses, including legal fees. You agree that you have no remedies for negligence, strict liability, breach of warranty or breach of contract except those provided in paragraph F3. You agree that the Foundation, the trademark owner, and any distributor under this agreement will not be liable to you for actual, direct, indirect, consequential, punitive or incidental damages even if you give notice of the possibility of such damage. 1F3. Limited right of replacement or refund. If you discover a defect in this electronic work within 90 days of receiving it, you can receive a refund of the money, if any, you paid for it by sending a written explanation to the person you received the work from. If you received the work on a physical medium, you must return the medium with your written explanation. The person or entity that provided you with the defective work may elect to provide a replacement copy in lieu of a refund. If you received the work electronically, the person or entity providing it to you may choose to give you a second opportunity to receive the work electronically in lieu of a refund. If the second copy is also defective, you may demand a refund in writing without further opportunities to fix the problem. 1F4. Except for the limited right of replacement or refund set forth in paragraph 1F3, this work is provided to you as is with no other warranties of any kind, express or implied, including but not limited to warranties of merchantability or fitness for any purpose. 1F5. Some states do not allow disclaimers of certain implied warranties or the exclusion or limitation of certain types of damages. If any disclaimer or limitation set forth in this agreement violates the law of the state applicable to this agreement, the agreement shall be interpreted to make the maximum disclaimer or limitation permitted by the applicable state law. The invalidity or unenforceability of any provision of this agreement shall not void the remaining provisions. 1F6. Indemnity. You agree to indemnify and hold the Foundation, the trademark owner, any agent or employee of the Foundation, anyone providing copies of Project Gutenberg TM electronic works in accordance with this agreement, and any volunteers associated with the production, promotion and distribution of Project Gutenberg TM electronic works, harmless from all liability, costs and expenses, including legal fees, that arise directly or indirectly from any of the following which you do or cause to occur. A. Distribution of this or any Project Gutenberg TM work. B. Alteration, modification, or additions or deletions to any Project Gutenberg TM work. And C. Any defect you cause. Section 2. Information about the mission of Project Gutenberg TM. Project Gutenberg TM is synonymous with the free distribution of electronic works in formats readable by the widest variety of computers including obsolete, old, middle-aged and new computers. It exists because of the efforts of hundreds of volunteers and donations from people in all walks of life. Volunteers and financial support to provide volunteers with the assistance they need is critical to reaching Project Gutenberg TM's goals and ensuring that the Project Gutenberg TM collection will remain freely available for generations to come. In 2001, the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation was created to provide a secure and permanent future for Project Gutenberg TM and future generations. To learn more about the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation and how your efforts and donations can help, see sections 3 and 4 and the Foundation webpage at http://www.pglav.org. Section 3. Information about the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. The Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation is a non-profit 501c3 educational corporation organized under the laws of the state of Mississippi and granted tax-exempt status by the Internal Revenue Service. The foundation's INOR federal tax identification number is 64,622,541. Its 501c3 letter is posted at http://pglav.org fundraising. Contributions to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation are tax deductible to the full extent permitted by U.S. federal laws and your state's laws. The Foundation's principal office is located at 4557 Mellon Dr. S. Fairbanks, AC 99712. But its volunteers and employees are scattered throughout numerous locations. Its business office is located at 809 North 1500 West, Salt Lake City at 84116 801 596 1887, emailbusiness@pglav.org. Email contact links and up-to-date contact information can be found at the Foundation's website and official page at http://pglav.org. For additional contact information, Dr. Gregory B. Newby, Chief Executive and Director, pglav.org. Section 4. Information about donations to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. Project Gutenberg TM depends upon and cannot survive without widespread public support and donations to carry out its mission of increasing the number of public domain and licensed works that can be freely distributed in machine-readable form accessible by the widest array of equipment including outdated equipment. Many small donations, 1 to 5,000, are particularly important to maintaining tax-exempt status with others. The Foundation is committed to complying with the laws regulating charities and charitable donations in all 50 states of the United States. Compliance requirements are not uniform and it takes a considerable effort, much paperwork and many fees to meet and keep up with these requirements. We do not solicit donations in locations where we have not received written confirmation of compliance. To send donations or determine the status of compliance for any particular state, visit http://pglav.org. While we cannot and do not solicit contributions from states where we have not met the solicitation requirements, we know of no prohibition against accepting unsolicited donations from donors in such states who approach us with offers to donate. International donations are gratefully accepted, but we cannot make any statements concerning tax treatment of donations received from outside the United States. U.S. laws alone swamp our small staff. Please check the Project Gutenberg web pages for current donation methods and addresses. Donations are accepted in a number of other ways including checks, online payments and credit card donations. To donate, please visit http://pglav.org donate. Section 5. General information about Project Gutenberg TM electronic works. Professor Michael S. Hart is the originator of the Project Gutenberg TM concept of a library of electronic works that could be freely shared with anyone. For 30 years, he produced and distributed Project Gutenberg TM ebooks with only a loose network of volunteer support. Project Gutenberg TM ebooks are often created from several printed editions, all of which are confirmed as public domain in the US, unless a copyright notice is included. Thus, we do not necessarily keep ebooks in compliance with any particular paper edition. Most people start at our website, which has the main PG search facility, http://www.gutenberg.net. This website includes information about Project Gutenberg TM, including how to make donations to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, how to help produce our new ebooks, and how to subscribe to our email newsletter to hear about new ebooks.